Sec, hacking, playing on that red team. They're trying to find me. They're always thinking I am an APT. Playing on that red team. They're trying to find me. They're always thinking I am an APT.
Pop your box, hit your site with that cross. Now the whole sock flipping out. Snatch your data. I got your sis so fucking drip. Got me stunting in that rape.
Playing on that red team. They're trying to find me. They're always thinking I am an APT. Playing on that red team. They're trying to find me. They're always thinking.
Let's go. Before we start, look, it's super important that you guys engage and let me know how the mic is, how the audio quality is, any feedback. The video has to be good. We're getting new hardware this week, so that's going to be good. We're going to move into a studio, so that will definitely help as well. But, it's time to go. It's the Hacker Mindset Sunday Conversations. I am your host, Marco Figueroa. I'm here. He is the founder of Trusted Sec and Binary Defense. He's the co-founder of DerbyCon. He goes by Hacking Dave on top. Guys, give it up. It's going to be good. 4. Dave, welcome, sir.
Hey, Marco, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. I'm excited to be on here, man.
Oh, man, it's going to be epic. Guys, definitely go ahead and chat. Put in the window. Let me know how's he sound, how do I sound, and let's get right into it, dude. I met you back at ShmooCon. I want to say about 2006, and we had a ball that year with those guys from OffSec. Can you tell me as well as everyone what you've been up to lately? What have you been doing, sir?
Well, life has been crazy for everybody with the whole COVID situation that's been going on. But since 2006, I became a chief security officer for a Fortune 1000 company. And then did that for a couple of years and thought that was awesome. And then I decided to start my own 2 startup companies, which we now have over 300 employees, which is insane worldwide. We just hired another person in Norway. We have 2 people in Norway, and we have a person or multiple people in the UK. We're all over the place, just doing some amazing growth. And my family's been growing. And one thing I'll say is obviously COVID being a horrible situation. One thing that's happened is I haven't been traveling as much as I used to. I was traveling like 70% of the time. And so I've gotten really big into fitness and, my health and still coding and making updates for things. And, while being a CEO of 2 companies, I still get time to hack things and break into stuff, which is my passion. So it's been great, man. I honestly can't complain. I think life has been great and truly blessed to have everything in front of me. Nice,
man. How did you get into cybersecurity and hacking and just the industry, the community?
Yeah, for me, my parents, moved around a lot from a kid. I came from kind of a lower class type of upbringing. And so, they had moved from job to job to job. And I never really had friends, I guess. My friends were all online. So I homed in on computers at a really early on age. Did all the video gaming stuff. And back then there were bulletin board systems and what we call MUDs, multi-user dimensions. And, I found a lot of online communities. There was one that was called WorldNet BBS here in Cleveland, and got to know people online and kind of made friends that way and started getting into IT and security. And I remember I was trying to look for some source code for one of the MUDs I played, and someone got me with sub 7 and was ejecting my CD-ROM drive and everything else from a Trojan perspective. So that was one of my initial forays into that. But the reason why I got into coding was to actually build video games. So I got into C and C++ to help out code with the multi-user dimension games that I was playing, and eventually became an op-in. And then from there, I almost failed out of high school. In fact, I basically failed out of high school, had to go to summer school just to pass. And I decided school wasn't the right thing for me. And I ended up joining the military and got scored really high in the ASAP test, or the aptitude test for intelligence, I guess. And ended up joining the military with a top secret clearance in intelligence. And then that's when it really kicked off my cybersecurity piece when I started working for the NSA.
Nice. Trusted Sec has been doing amazing, as well as binary defense. You were talking about your last job, 9 to 5. You know, when you were when you was a CISO, I believe at DeBolt. What was that? Taking that risk and leaving that cushy job, that paycheck, and starting up this new startup. You know, what was that? How did that
You know,
feel? What
I
made
look
you
at
decide?
I look at old Dave and I'm like, old Dave, what the hell were you thinking when you did this? It worked well, but what the hell were you thinking when you did this? Because, I was working for a Fortune 1000 company at Diebold, and I had a phenomenal team. I had full support for my security program. I was best friends with the CIO. I reported directly to the board of directors, with a dotted line to the CFO. I could literally do anything I wanted to. I could make changes in production to fix security issues if I wanted to. It was like the most magical place that I was working for. And so we implemented an amazing security program. And one thing that I started to realize in my mind, and that was kind of going through my head, is that, if I can build a successful security program for a company like this, can I do this for other companies and help other organizations get better with cybersecurity? And so, it just started racking through my brain of how do I help the world get better at cybersecurity? I know that's a very broad, perspective, but it really led to me starting Trusted Sec initially, where I left, a very good, job as one of the youngest vice presidents in Diebold history, to start my own company at the basement of my house with brand new twins that had just come, from my wife, obviously. And so, so new twins, our first home, and we're going through all of this. I'm like, honey, I think I want to leave a perfectly stable position where everything's going wonderful and great, to start my own company in the basement of my house. And that's literally the conversation I had with my wife.
Wow. Wow. And what did she say? How did you what was that conversation like? How did you convince her to say, okay, great, go for it?
One of the things about a marriage is that it's all about trusting your significant other, and it's all about being best friends and having a belief in them. And one thing that's always been amazing with Erin, is that, for one, she deals with me and all my craziness, right? That's one thing, right? But when we started DerbyCon, exact same thing. This is before I left Diebold. I said, hey, I want to start a conference in Louisville, Kentucky. If we don't get 600 people, which I think we can, we're going to have to take a second mortgage on our house. And Erin said to me, I believe in you. And if this is what you want to do, let's figure out a way to make it work. And, she's always been the supporting type of this marriage. And, frankly, the one that keeps everything in order. I mean, she ran DerbyCon. I mean, she ran everything that you saw at DerbyCon was her. When it came to the organization, the scheduling, the entire conference itself. I mean, she was the glue that held all of us together at that conference. And it's the same thing at Trusted Sec. When I started Trusted Sec, she, was a sign language interpreter for the deaf for school, but she had taken off because she had just had twins. Mm-hmm. And she said, hey, I'll pick up finance. I'll learn finance and figure it out. And she became our controller and eventually VP of finance and everything else. She's been there since day one of Trusted Sec. And, she was fully supportive. She said, I believe that you can make an awesome company. And I believe that it would be, an interesting endeavor for both of us to figure this out. And she was excited about it. And, ultimately it led to me starting in the basement of my house. And the story is it's history from there.
Dude, I definitely have to say that, if it was me, I would try to convince my significant other. It would definitely be difficult. Like, you're telling me you're gonna go ahead and start up, and we don't know, we have this new home and everything like that. That story is definitely amazing. How hard was it starting Trusted Sec in the beginning, right? The early startup days, where now, you have these VCs that go ahead and give you millions of dollars and like, hey, you have this brand and name, here you go run with it. But when you started Trusted Sec, it wasn't like that. It wasn't as big. The VCs weren't throwing around millions the way, they are today. So how was that in the beginning?
A really quick funny story before I started Trusted Sec was really the big nudge for me to start it. was Chris Nickerson. I know you've had on recently. Chris was doing a pen test for us, and he got into our financial database, and he's like, "Dude, you're not making enough money. You need to go start a new job." So I was like, "Oh, okay." And it was more of a joke. He didn't actually do all the specifics on that, but it was more of an emphasis of hey, you can be successful like we are over at Lares, by starting your own company and doing your own thing. And it was, he was a very, very instrumental in me making the final decision of leaving and starting, and giving me the confidence that I needed, as well. And so, when you start a company, you literally have no idea what you're doing. VC is a great example of that. I had no idea about VC. I had no idea how to start an LLC, what the accounting was like, and accounting software. I had no idea. I'd never done this before, right? So I'm Googling how to start an LLC. And I remember it's funny because, when you're building out your infrastructure, you need a website, you need proposals, you need report deliverables, especially in the consulting side. And so I remember like spending all my time building all of these, and I didn't have a contract, and I didn't have a law firm. So, I was Googling things of like, hey, what's a legal template I can use for proposals? And, in there, it had some language in there around something like some UK law. So it was like a UK site I must have ripped it off of. And it was public domain and free. And so we had used this legal wording for like 2 years at Trusted Sec, and some customer finally said, hey, this whole thing in your proposals and the rules of engagement and all of this other stuff, is from the UK. And I said, oh, okay. So then we actually had law firms and things like that actually go and do it. So you learn as you go, as you're going and doing this. But one of the biggest things for me was I wanted to run my own company. I didn't want others to run my company. And when it comes to being genuine and doing the right thing and not always doing it based off of money, VC is a very different beast. They're looking at returns and gains and everything else. And I was looking at it I wanted to help people. And we always make those decisions that way. Like when we talk about decisions in Trusted Sec, it's not, financially growing as a company is definitely a key indicator there, but it's not always the deciding factor of how we do things. If we're, not doing something right, or an engagement doesn't go well, we will go over and above and beyond to ensure that we correct any mistakes that we have. And we spend a substantial amount of time and effort making sure that's a perfect engagement for our folks and everything else. And so it was really just it's a mindset of what, and I think when you go to the VC route, you lose a lot of that, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure they're fun as I am right now, being my own boss and growing my own thing. And it's taken a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and, countless hours, and a lot of traveling and building the name and brand and reputation. It's all worth it in the long run. And if you can not go the VC,
you compromise the brand and what you're trying to build. So can you share that growth pain on hiring and attracting clients during those first few years?
Oh, that was the hardest thing for us by far. What was good is I had a name and a brand already in some senses, right? Because I'd written the social engineer toolkit. I'd been on the news quite frequently. So I already had established my credibility, I guess, as an individual person when I did this, and so that helped out a lot. When I first left, I already had a couple customers lined up. I'd reached out to some friends and I said, hey, I'm looking at starting my own company. Would you want me to do some consulting work for you? And my friends were like, sure, absolutely. We could definitely use the work. We could definitely use the help. Would love to have you come in and help us. And so I had my first ever job that I got was actually a virtual CISO, where I was coming in and helping them build their security program from the ground up. And so that took about 6 months of work, which was great revenue coming into the company, but also what you don't realize is that, you have terms and conditions, and you have, you actually have to start doing the work before you actually get paid for the work. So, it was probably about a 4 or 5 month delay in getting paid during that period of time. So, we're like, this might take a little bit of time. But, really the biggest driver for me was, making sure that we establish our brand. So, I coded I was the sales wing, I was the delivery wing, I was the work wing. I was literally working until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning every single day, just to get that name out there, and just to get people and advise them what we're doing. And I would reach out, I wasn't like calling people like, hey, do you want to do work with me? It was more like, hey, if you ever need work, I'm here and I can do work for you to help you and your organization out. And that really kind of started to build up. Customers started coming there. Brand and reputation was huge. It's difficult because a lot of customers are like, well, I want 16 references and I want to see 6 years worth of work and I want to come see your facility. I'm like, well, you can come to the basement of my house with some screaming kids that are murdering each other upstairs, and I can give you one customer, does that work? And you have to.
Yeah. Can you recount a story on landing that first big whale, that first client, what you had to do to attract them, and what did you do to because your company was small at the time, right? But when you're going to those Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies, they want something that, a brand, a name, and you're in the beginning stages where you're building that. How was that? How did they take that risk on trusting your brand and Trusted Tech?
Well, one of the things that I did very well beforehand was that Cleveland has a very high concentration of Fortune 500 and Fortune 1000 companies. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of the large size banks. So we have a top 5 bank here. We have a lot of manufacturing, ton of manufacturing here. And, I had presented at the development of security programs, as a CISO at Diebold. I worked with a lot of other organizations out there. And so, I reached out to my contacts that I originally knew before. And I said, hey, I'm now on my own. Do you need some work? And one of the larger manufacturing companies here in Cleveland, it really is about as an SEO, your cold calling and reaching out. That's more once you already have an established in the past, make them better in their position stronger. And what a security program should look like, let a few of them, you now have references that will help you get into other ones. So they're like, well, hey, I've already done work for this manufacturing opportunity. And then people, eventually grow like word of mouth. Like, hey, there's this new company out here, Trusted Tech, led by Dave Kennedy. And, it's an amazing company. It did amazing things for us. At first, Trusted Tech was all about Dave Kennedy and Dave Kennedy's going to be there and Dave Kennedy's going to go to this. But then it becomes more about your people that you add and what they do. So, building that brand and reputation and making sure that the quality of work that you do doesn't suffer because of that is an extremely delicate balance that you have to imagine, especially when you're taking yourself off of it less and you're relying more on other people. You have to have things in place.
Awesome. So Trusted Tech was becoming successful, right? And then you decided to start Binary Defense. Did you see a gap?
When it comes to insaneness, right? What was interesting about Binary Defense was, when I was working at Diebold, we had an MSSP at the time. Our auditors liked it, and they thought it was cool that we had a third-party MSSP that was monitoring us 24/7, so we could comply to the FFIEC. But they weren't really doing anything for us, and most of our actual work on our security program really came down to our people and our security operations center internally. And so, I saw it should be an extension of your security team, people that work day in and day out with you and understanding your environment and understanding what attackers are doing and being that additional leverage that you may not have in your organization for people, resources, and everything else. And so, when I decided to leave Diebold, you need a 24/7 security operations center. We have our own product, which is development costs. We have all these different things that a threat intelligence and counterintelligence team. So all of these things require people and require a substantial amount of funding versus consulting, which you can stand up day one, start to get some revenue coming in, and then start to have the building blocks. Now, one of the things I didn't think about was, originally Binary Defense was going to be Trusted Tech as well. Mm-hmm. So it's just going to be one company. So originally it's just going to be consulting, and then we're going to build a security operations center out. And so I started some. However, I can't use you for pen testing anymore because it's a conflict. I can't have the same people that are testing and doing my pen testing and everything else that's going on be the same people that's doing my monitoring and detection. It's never going to fly. And I started talking to more and more people, and they're like, yeah, that's definitely a conflict. So I'm like, okay, well, so I need to start a new company to help facilitate this, and they really need to be separate. And so, just this company from the basement of his house all the way to like IPO and everything else. And that's not, I'm saying I'm not looking to IPO Binary Defense, but he had taken a company successfully from nothing to something. And so he came aboard as a partner, and he's our acting CEO. His name is Mike Valentine. And so he became more of the day-to-day leadership of, because I couldn't run Trusted Sec, who was a growing company at the time, and Binary Defense, who was a completely separate company that I had to start from the ground up. So him and I went in equally on that. And so basically he was incentivized getting the right people out. So more the technological aspects of things. So I was able to manage both those at the same time. So they all just worked together and clicked together and grew and grew and grew. And you know, very, very happy with how both of those have gone. And
how I became so big. Switching gears.
I still don't know. You know, so DerbyCon, you know, the way where it started from was Adrian Crenshaw, Iron Geek, held a it was like a free Metasploit class in Louisville, Kentucky. And you know, Adrian and I go a long ways back. I'd met him a couple times, but really got to know him at the Louisville ISSA chapter that was out there. And a really funny story about that, it's one of my favorite stories about Adrian, is that Adrian was running the CTF. Martin was running his own company, I think at the time called Question Defense, with another guy named Alex Ka. And he wanted to break into the whole InfoSec scene, and he was already a developer on the Backtrack Linux team with making, you know, would you join the Capture the Flag with me and help me win this so that I can get my name out there and hopefully get a job and all this other stuff. And I was really trying to do everything I possibly could to you know, not just grow my name, but, you know, help the community and contribute to the InfoSec community and be that kind of figurehead, I guess. I don't want to really consider myself a figurehead in my ass. And, you know, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, hey, I beat Dave Kennedy and he sucks and he's a noob, you know? And that was like always going through my head, you know? And I was always like super sensitive about that. And so I'm like, hey man, I'm really sensitive about that. I don't think I can do it. And Martin's like, listen, it would really help me out if you could really do this. I'm like, all right, I'll do it. And so I joined the CTF, and so it was there's another guy named Null Thread or Elliot Cutlerite who was doing it at the same time, and it was like neck and neck for a while. And I was getting a little nervous, and so I'm hacking away, getting flags, and I noticed there was a proof of concept denial service that came out that I got working to a workable 0 day, or not 0 day, I guess it was a 1 day. And so I got it to a working remote code execution piece. This is during my heavy exploit development 50% of the time. And so what was funny about that was I launched this exploit that had not been published. It was not public. And I really made this like capture flag look really believable. Adrian's pictures. And there was this one, I'm like, man, if I get this with the 0 day, you know, I win this whole thing and I get all the CTF videos and I win it. And then I start going through the thing. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is Adrian's laptop. And so I went upstairs and I'm like, Adrian, do you have a fully computer at that time? And anyways, we ended up winning the CTF, and Martin got a job over at Akivant and eventually ran the whole consulting practice over there, and it all worked out and match made in heaven. But Adrian decided to throw this Metasploit on. And so he asked me if I would go and do an exploit dev piece and a Metasploit piece. And I said, sure, no problem, happy to. So I came down to Louisville, fell in love with the whole 4th Street Live area. And what was awesome about that specific area, this is kind of like DerbyCon beta. And it was one of those things where people were just learning awesome stuff, and they were able to take that and apply it directly back into their own personal lives. And afterwards, we're all hanging out, and we went to this pizza shop right on the cusp of Indiana and Kentucky. And I'm sitting there at the pizza welcome, and, you know, come here and learn, and there's no egos or, you know, rock stars at this time, you know, is the whole rock star toxic mentality. We're friends, we have a great time, learn from one another, and get stronger and better with each other. And that's really where DerbyCon started, was it. And I called my wife, and Aaron's like, oh my God, what are you talking for the conference? And it just grew from there and started to be included in these different areas. And all of a sudden now we broke those barriers down, and we had Nickerson came to the very first one, you know, Mutz came, and, you know, I was like, sure, absolutely. And, you know, what HD said is, you know, DerbyCon's the first conference that he's ever been to that he doesn't feel like he's got to go upstairs and hide in his room. You know, everybody was just so friendly. The hallway cons and the parties that we threw, you know,